Okay, we're all set.
Okay. At this time, I would like to call to order the meeting of committees to set the agenda for next week's school board meeting. And in opening, on behalf of the Crestwood School District, I would like to extend our sincere condolences to the families of Noah Green and Tanner Kalu. Both families have suffered huge losses, and huge losses not only to the family, but to the mountaintop community. At this time, roll call, please.
Do you want to do the Pledge of Allegiance? Do we have to do that
We
first?
don't usually do that for committee meetings,
Okay.
I don't believe.
Okay. Barry,
Here.
Miss Bibla,
Here.
Mr. Costello,
Here.
Mr. Brogna,
Present.
Mrs. McCurdy,
Here.
Mrs. Haddix,
Here.
Mrs. McGovern,
Here.
Mr. Swank,
Present.
and Mrs. Spath.
Here.
9 members present.
Mr. Mahalik?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Boone. Mr. Boone, if I may also add to that, I would like to ask our community as well to please remember the family and friends of our 2016 graduate, Tanner. Over the past 2 days, I had heard so many things regarding Tanner and the imprint he has left on this district. He was an exceptional young man, and he is going to be so greatly missed. I've adopted the motto, always a comment, since I've come here, and Tanner is exactly that graduate that I was thinking about when I mentioned always a comment, that no matter where you go, no matter how far your accomplishments and talents take you, at heart, you're always a comment. And that's exactly who Tanner was. To his family and his friends, our promise is that Tanner will never be forgotten in this district. And for his friends, if anyone is having a difficult time with this, please reach out to us. Our counselors are available to you, and we are here together to lean on each other. So, Mr. Boone, with that, I thank you. And of course, we are thinking about our student Nash this evening as well. And our thoughts and prayers are with him as well. So thank you, Mr. Boone. At this time, we are going to open our Human Resources Committee meeting for this January 14th of 2021. I would like to introduce our chairwoman, Mrs. McGovern, our chair committee members, Mr. Brogna and Mr. Swank. Mrs. McGovern, at this time, I'd like to hand over the floor to you.
I make a motion to move, I make a motion to approve the November 12th, 2020 committee meeting minutes. All in favor? Committee only.
Aye.
Mr. Boggins?
Yes. Yes.
Any opposed? Okay, then we will continue. I'm going to make a motion to approve the following. 1, recommend consideration and approve BRO/RC, a family medical leave to begin in March after the birth of her child. 2, recommend consideration and approve the following as a non-professional substitute, Jaden Hooper, custodian. 3, recommend consideration and approve to continue the health insurance for all eligible furloughed employees until they are recalled from furlough. 4, recommend consideration and approve the following pay for Piero Sassu, a flat rate of $75 per event for each extracurricular event, and for graduation, $25 per hour. All in favor?
Aye.
Maureen,
Yes.
should open it up for discussion.
Well, I was just going to get to that, Barry.
Okay.
I asked the committee first, are they in favor of this?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Are there any opposed? Now, are there any questions from
Yeah,
the other committee members or the administration?
yes. On number 4, maybe we should change the wording. Recommend consideration and approve the following pay for Piero Sasu at a flat rate of $75 per event for each extracurricular event and $25 an hour for other events such as graduation and school board meetings, because once we go back to live, he is there for security reasons. So maybe for providing security for other events such as graduation, school board meetings, et cetera.
Sure. I mean, I think our intent there, Mr. Boone, and I appreciate that, was that for all events, Mr. Sasu and the district has agreed that there's a flat rate, knowing that some might be short, quick, others may be a little extended. For graduation specifically, we are aware that that's a longer event and one that we have specifically said that will be a $25 per hour because we could be up to 6 hours with that graduation. The other events, we are aware they fluctuate, and that's how I think it's advantageous for all of us to have the flat rate. So that's why it was specifically stating graduation, because that is something that we know is going to go, probably many more hours than, other meetings.
Well,
Excuse me, Mr. Mahoney. I have a question. For graduation, what time would he start? Normally graduation is at 6 o'clock. So what time would he be asked to be there?
So, and again, Mrs. McGovern, I have not attended one yet that wasn't held on our campus, but I would assume even if we should go back to the arena, we probably want them there, no later than an hour before graduation, and probably staying, at least an hour after, because I usually expect people to take pictures and do all those fun type of ceremonial type of things. So that's why we thought that could end up being a much longer day.
Okay. Well, does the arena have their own security?
They do. They absolutely do. But I know he's been a part of our graduation. His familiarity with our students and staff. So I know that he has been attending them in the past. And certainly it's something, that we can consider if we feel there isn't that need. We certainly don't need to. And I know that Mr. Sasu would be fine with that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Are there any questions from the public?
Well, then for board meetings, he's paid on an hourly rate?
No, he's paid the flat fee of $75, Mr. Boone.
Okay.
Are there any questions from the other members? Of
Thank you.
So for board meetings, Bob, that's what you're saying? He'll be $75 if
Yeah, I will do the wording for the.
Okay, so we're gonna
Board
change up the
differently.
wording
I'm not sure.
to read correctly. Okay,
I will make sure it's worded
we'll
Right.
work with that.
more
Okay,
clear for our,
okay.
yes.
Are there any other questions by the board? Are there any questions by the public?
At this point, we do not have a question, Mrs. McGovern.
Okay, then I'd like to move these items forward to the board meeting for next week. And I will
Thank you so
adjourn this
very much.
meeting.
Excellent. At this point, we will open up if Mr. Blanchard could bring us to our next committee meeting. I want to follow exactly what he has loaded. Okay, at this time, we are going to call to order our policy committee. We have Mr. Costello, our chairperson, in attendance. Mrs. McCurdy, I believe, is in attendance, and I know Mrs. Spath will be joining us shortly. But at this time, I believe we have 2 members of our policy committee.
Kim's
Over
there.
to Mr. Costello.
Kim's there.
Oh, great.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Mahalik. And yes, Mrs. Spath and Mrs. McCurdy are here, as well as myself. Our first item, number 3, I'll make the motion to approve the minutes of the policy for November 12th, 2020's meeting. If I can have a second, please.
Second, Mrs. McCurdy.
Thank you. And all in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we approve the minutes from the policy of November 12th. Item 4 is our only item to move to the agenda for next week, which is a recommendation to consider to approve policy 253, transgender. It is our 3rd reading, and then it will be our adoption for the policy. And I've included this policy below, as you'll be able to see once Damien scrolls down. So that people can review. It is also on our website. Just a quick note, if the policy is approved, it will go back to PSBA. It will not show up on our board policy handbook immediately. It has to go through its legal documentation and formatting to be put into the policy manual. So for those that once it's approved, if it is approved next Thursday, just so the community knows, it won't be on the website immediately, but it will be activated. So at this point, I make a motion for our board. If there's any questions from the committee, and then in regards to item 4, hearing none, are there any questions from the other board members in item 4? Very good. Then I'll make this motion action to move forward item 4 to the board meeting. All those in favor of committee, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, item 4 will then be moved over to the agenda. The next item is number 5 on the agenda, which is our draft policies. We currently have 27 policies that are in draft that will require review, update, and board action. And we will be trying to wrap those up and getting them all cleaned up within the next month or 2. Some will require an automatic action to move forward as there's no changes, just simply updates. Others may require us to do 1, 2, or 3 readings depending on the nature of the policy, but we'll have those updates forthcoming. Item 6 is just a policy notice. In November of 2020, we received that PSBA will no longer maintain a 3-employee section, which means administrative, professional, and support for staffing. And therefore, the following 9 policies all need to be reviewed. This may require us to deactivate some policies and or just make simple changes, but we're going to go through those over the next month or so. And finally, just to give the community an update on item 7, in our policy handbook, the following 9 policies have all been moved forward into the handbook, and they have all received review and legal citations from PSBA. Any discussion items from the committee? Any discussion items from any other board members or administrators present? And any questions from the community, Mr. Mahalik?
This time, there are no questions from the community, Mr. Costello.
Well, thank you very much. And with that, I adjourn our policy meeting. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Costello. At this time, I'd like to open up the academic programs agenda for this January 14th. Call to order with our chairwoman, Mrs. Bibla. We have Mrs. McGovern and Mrs. McCurdy as our chair committees. Mrs. Bibla.
Roll call, Mrs. McGovern,
Here.
Mrs. McCurdy.
Here.
Thank you. I'd like to approve the minutes of November 12th, 2020 from the academic committee meeting. All in favor?
Fine.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. There are 3 items to move to the agenda. First is recommendation and approve the following agreement between WVIA and Crestwood School District for the 2020, 2021, 2020, 2022, 2020, 2023 school years. This is an enhanced scholar program promoting academic excellence. B, recommend in consideration and approve the following as a student teacher, John Shanley, for music with Mary Leo from March 22nd to May 9th. Third, recommend consideration and approve the following course, advanced physical education, to be in next year's school schedule. Do we have any questions from the committee? Any from the board members? Hearing none. All in favor to move those to the agenda next week?
Excuse me, Anna, I was muted. I'm
Yep.
sorry.
That's okay.
We were adding the advanced physical education course. Since we have a course description also for the sports entertainment and social media marketing, might be a good idea to move that also to the agenda so that the course is approved and it's ready to go when scheduling starts, which might be before the next board meeting.
I'm okay. Peg, is it ready to go?
Yes, she will be ready to go. If we can approve it in this board session, meaning in the next board meeting in January, she can have it ready to go for implementation next fall.
Okay. Anybody on the committee have?
Is it in place, not letter D as a motion, Barry, already? So,
Oh, it is. Okay. I didn't see that line. Small print.
sorry, it's very thin
That's
because
all
there's so much writing, but it's right underneath the first course for the physical education. It's on letter D.
Thank
If
you.
you move down a little.
All right, it's there. Okay.
I do have something to say. Although the advanced phys ed could look like it's strictly for athletes, I'd like it to be known that it's not strictly for athletes, that it's for other students also. I'm afraid that some people might misinterpret it.
Okay.
Mrs.
And
McGovern, thank-
also, I would really like to see us add other subjects like anatomy, psychology. We used to have them in the past. I think we should really try working on them and try to get them back again. I think anatomy would help a lot of those that are going on in the medical field. Psychology, I know our kids have to go to LCC or King's Wilkes, whatever, for that course. I'd like to see it brought back again.
Mr. McGovern, Mrs. McGovern, we have a social psych class, which is a combination of sociology and psychology. That's a precursor, a prerequisite to many psychology classes on campus. So kids that are unsure tend to start with social psych and then step into psychology on campus at one of our local universities. It's something that we can look at. We've also explored in depth adding anatomy and physiology, and the real issue is that our biology 2 class really is an anatomy and physiology class. It's just not labeled that. So we've had a host of conversations back and forth between the current instructor, Mr. Madrowski, and myself, and we will continue to look at what's the merits of splitting that Bio 2 into 2 separate courses. So
Okay, because I know in the past we did have a regular anatomy class
sure.
and a regular psychology class also. At least when my kids were there, which is a
Yep.
while ago, I grant you.
over time, our needs have increased and our staff have decreased. And I think that was part of the rationale back in the day before I came to the high school for condensing those into combined courses. So we'll take another look and see what places we can make a difference.
Okay.
If we don't split Bio 2 and add an anatomy and physiology course this year, maybe we could retitle our Bio 2 as Bio 2 / anatomy and physiology until we do split the courses, so that the students going in have a better idea of what they're getting into.
That's a distinct possibility.
Anybody else have any questions? Any questions from the community, Bob?
At this time, there are no questions from the community. No questions from the community at this time, Mrs. Bibba. Mrs. Bibba, if I may just also bring up the WVIA, we're happy to be able to offer this to our students. And I know we're all familiar with the Artists of the Week and the Scrimmage Bowl, Scholastic Scrimmage Bowl. There are so much more. And representatives from WVIA will be coming to in service our staff of all the other resources that will really supplement the things that we are doing K-12. So again, a lot of people don't always associate it with the younger kids as it relates to the school items, but there are so many resources. It's amazing. And yes, we will be having, we're hoping to have a Scholastic team. They will be doing it this year. Of course, it will be following the social distancing protocols. And we are gathering up now as a club, getting our club advisor and getting that ready. So for our students on the secondary campus, look forward to that, as we are, again, very excited for the Scholastic Scrimmage Bowl. And then, of course, the Artist of the Week. As I can tell you, we have so many talented students in the field of the behavior, the bachelor arts. So I can't wait to see, what comes about with this. So thank you so very much to the board for, again, always supporting the programming that comes forward to you.
Okay, thank you. Should I do another roll call then, Barry, since we said about the course, the sports and entertainment course?
I think you just make a motion to move those to the agenda.
Okay. Motion to move all 4 items to the agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none? Okay. Next, we have 2 discussion items. One is coming back face-to-face. Bob, do you want to start there?
Sure, and this is of course, an open discussion. Mrs. Bibla, the administration team are discussing daily the recommendations. We had been face-to-face in person in a hybrid model, and I just really need to remind our community that on 3 separate occasions in consecutive weeks, the Department of Education specifically met with us, and their strong recommendation was for us to close because of the community infection rate. At that time, the infection rate was much lower. It was still insubstantial, but much lower than it presents itself today. I'm confused. I could only assume that message was meant for 499 school districts and not necessarily those in Luzerne County. Nonetheless, we absolutely want to get our students back. Again, the recommendation to the 499 school districts was to look at your community, see what the infection rate is, and see if as a team, which the board and our parents, and of course the administration and our staff are a big part of, feels that it is safe to bring our students back. The recommendation of it also was specific to the elementary students in our district. Elementary is K-6. So we are meeting as a team. We will have an announcement to our public shortly. There are still a lot of things that we are still working through. But we absolutely have our goal, our motivation, get our kids back as quickly as we can to some form of in-person instruction.
Bob, can you answer why is the push? Why is the state only looking at elementary? I mean, we were in hybrid for the entire school. So, and this is my opinion, but if I'm looking at bringing students back, I'm looking to bring all students back, because I don't feel that
I think,
one is over the other at this point.
I think, and that's a very, very good point, Mrs. Bibba. I think, again, what the discussion was, those districts that are substantial. And again, Luzerne County, specifically our area, the mountaintop area, is still very, very much in the substantial phase of this infection. So I think what they're doing is, and we understand this, that right now, the students in the greatest need are those elementary students because they are probably having the most challenging time with accessing their curriculum online. Again, I believe our district is doing a tremendous job, not to say that there are not struggles, but I am so pleased, and I know the tremendous amount of communication that parents give to me about how their children are doing. And it's absolutely not perfect. And it's not what we would ever choose, okay, as a district being our main platform. But I think the idea behind that is our students with special needs, our students with you know, ELL or ESL needs, as well as our elementary students, are probably the ones that are having the most difficult time with this closure. So to try to bring back the least amount of students and, you know, and focusing and targeting on those areas where we may be seeing the greatest need is why that recommendation came. And yes, we did come back K-12 and was, again, proud of the efforts when we came in. But again, for 3 consecutive weeks, and we were only open for 3 weeks, we were told, and in fact, that time Matthew Stem from the Department of Education met with us, and it was very clear. So again, I can only take that press conference as saying, listen, you know your community, you know your area, you know what makes the most sense for you in protecting the community as a whole. And thank goodness that we don't have kids being affected the way that we're seeing our older adults be affected. But it has hit our community and it has hit our students. And we've had several students that needed to have a higher level of medical care. And with those kids, I think about them. And I'm so grateful that the most recent student was dismissed from the hospital and is back home and hopefully, you know, getting their bearings back in order. But it is just not completely immune to our young kids. And we have to understand that as well. But for the most part, our concern is our community. Our concern is our staff and our faculty and what this is doing to them. I do speak daily with our pandemic team. Several of them are members. I have close contacts with the local hospitals, and the local hospitals are at the brink of being without openings if you should need a bed for medical attention. And if I'm wrong, I would like the community to say that to me, because all the information I am getting is that they are at the maximum capacity for what they can handle. So again, I want our kids back. We all want our kids back. And there is, for us that feel that a vaccination is the light at the end of the tunnel, that light is here as we are going through 1A of the groups that are able to receive the vaccination quickly. 1B is coming. Our teachers and staff are within that area. I'm hoping that within the next 7 to 14 days, our staff are going to be able to get that first line, the first shot. And then soon after, obviously, it's either 21 days or 28 days, get that second vaccination, of which time those staff members that have conditions or have loved ones that they're caring for that have conditions, at least that weight will be lifted off their minds of carrying that home or taking it home to themselves. So there is hope and there is light, and we are holding so tight to that. And at the same time, we are working to get our kids back under these recommendations. And we are going to do that and continue to do that. Again, the recommendation is for the beginning of the next marking period, which for us is February 1st. So again, for the community, we will have an announcement at some time shortly, and we are working on it and we are looking at it. And at the same time, we are continuing to obviously encourage anyone that's having difficulties, whether they be technical difficulties, whether they be academic and learning difficulties, please reach out to us. Any one of us, our building administrators, our director, supervisor of behavior supports, myself, any one of us, if there's something that we can do in the immediate. So Mrs. Bibb, I thank you so much for that discussion. I am certainly open to any questions from the board, and my administration team are here as well. And again, we'll try to do our very best to give as much clarification as we can.
Bob, just one more thing. What are we looking for? We're looking for 3 weeks out of substantial in order to come back?
So prior to that recommendation, yes, it was 14 days in the moderate phase. Okay? Right. So we were in that moderate phase when we began the preparation of opening schools to our hybrid. We then quickly became substantial. And as a team, we said, with the number of students that were in school, the precautions that we have in place and will continue to have in place, we were going to continue and do the very, very best. We did struggle, as our board knows. We struggled. We had at one time, I believe, 11 teachers in quarantine. At no fault of their own. Okay, I can tell you I was involved in every one of those cases. This was not reckless behavior, so to speak. It was not. It was our teachers being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Some coaching, and were direct exposures in coaching. Other had loved ones at home. We know that, and this is why I constantly stress, Mrs. Bibla, that when we have a case or when we have a direct exposure, no one can point fingers at someone because mom and dad got to go to work. Grammy and grandpa are taking care of us, and maybe, it's not failure. And my very, very dear friend who's on our pandemic team always says to me, a positive case is not failure. It's going to happen. And now more than ever, we are in triple digits in this county. So it's going to happen. How we handle it. When we learned this past Monday morning that a member of that our basketball team was exposed to another because of another situation at school they were at, immediately pandemic team gets together. Immediately we close, we quarantine, we work together with the families. I mean, there is not minutes that go by in order for us to try to mitigate, what is happening. And I think we've been very successful at that. But again, success is not having no cases, because if someone's saying they're having no cases, they're just not being honest. That's all there is. You have to be having cases. You have to. We have cases every other day, but that's not failure. Failure would be us not handling it in the manner that the Department of Health asks us, and in the manner that our health and safety plan that is approved by our Board of Education, us not following that, and we do follow that. So when we went back, we were in moderate, quickly switched to substantial. We wanted to continue as long as we can. Again, 3 weeks in a row in substantial, 3 weeks in a row, met with Department of Education, met with the Department of Health. We're strongly encouraged to close down, had multiple teachers, in quarantine, had many students in quarantine. So our infection rate was minimal. Our positive cases, as you can see at our dashboard that we release every Friday, sometimes Saturday, and I apologize, but we do try to get all the data to be as accurate as possible. So we release that so our community can see that and make the decisions. And if you look at that and if you review our data, you'll see that we have a lot more direct exposures than we do positive cases. But nonetheless, those direct exposures do require our staff, our students, our faculty to quarantine. So we've dealt with a lot, but we've handled it in such a professional manner. And I'm just so proud of our team. And I'm so grateful for the members of that pandemic team who, you know, many of them are not members of the school community. They do not get paid to take my phone calls on Saturdays and Sundays and late in the evening. And they do that. They do that because they're members of this community and they have kids in this community, in this school, and they want so very much for us to be safe and for us to have the best information possible. So again, I know that goes on a little bit, Mrs. Bibba, more than what you probably hoped, but it's important for me to just, you know, really ensure our community that we constantly are looking at our return plan and also constantly looking at that infection rate in our county and see how that would be you know, handled if we and when we return to school. I have some questions if we could take it.
But prior to that, Mr. Mahalik, just a quick procedural question. This is Mr. Costello. If we are, and I'm just on item 5A, if we are to change strategy and only bring elementary students, will that require board action or is that administrative action? And the reason I'm asking is if the semester begins February 1st, then that action would either have to take place at this board meeting or a special meeting would have to be placed.
Yeah, so I don't think, I mean, we had signed, as everybody knows, we had to sign an affidavit with the state that we are following our plan. There's been no guidance that there would need board approval to return. So I think on the recommendation of the administration, and of course I'm going to seek the input and guidance. I mean, we're a team. The 9 board members, I am so proud to work closely with you, and that is a guidance. But there has not been any directive that it must be board approved. Again, in what we signed was that we were following our health and safety plan. And that we would continue to serve that plan. And if we were to return, we would update that plan. So again, that I don't necessarily know for certain that it needs board approval. I would certainly not be opposed to board approval. But yes, I think we would be fine going back with the recommendation of the administration, and of course with the approval. You know, whether it be through a board motion or through making your desires known that you support that action.
My follow-up question to that is simply, if it was only elementary students to be brought back, would they be brought back 5 days a week, or would they still have to follow a hybrid model for those specific grade levels?
So I would say that based upon what took place in the fall, that we would still have to remain in a hybrid, Mr. Costello. We would not have social distancing on our buses in many of our classrooms if all the kids were there 5 days a week. Now, of course, many students could stay at home. We weren't really in long enough to have that information. What I am certain of, that our transportation would not give us 6 feet. That I'm certain of. Some classes, I think we would be okay. Other classes, no. There was some classes I walked in and there were 12 students in, and if we had even another 5 students added to that, especially in those elementary where the classrooms are a little tighter, we could not give 6 feet of social distancing. So the recommendation would absolutely continue to be hybrid, at least to begin with. And then once we saw the numbers and felt okay, because clearly if a parent does not want their child to come back, that's their right. And we are working with them to ensure that they continue to receive a quality education. However, I'm also not telling them, hey, make a decision and stick with that. I'll see you in September, because I know things can change and they may feel much more comfortable as the infection rate comes down. So I can't have, make a decision now for something that is unknown come April. So it would continue to be hybrid because I can guarantee social distancing, which we know is probably singularly more important even than masks, is that 6 feet. Although masks would always be mandatory, I'm saying the more I learn about this, the more I'm educated, that 6 feet is as important as anything else that we can do. So I could not knowingly violate that. I won't violate that. 6 feet or it's not happening.
So, my follow-up question then is simply, and I appreciate all that, and I think, and I appreciate your guidance and your leadership from that standpoint. Unfortunately, legislation was turned down that protected lawsuits to come after us. So I think we follow it to the T, whether we agree with it or not, means nothing. We have to protect the community and the district from that standpoint. But my follow-up question is then simply, if we're going to stay in hybrid, and we already know that in our hybrid model that we passed, our elementary students were able to go to school in their elementary schools, why wouldn't we be bringing back K through 12 in a hybrid model? What is the value of only bringing back some? And I totally get, as an educator, where you're coming from. Our elementary students are going to have different struggles, and our secondary students, again, also have a tremendous amount of struggles. This is not the best learning environment for anyone. And if you're, at least in my opinion, but if we're still going to have to remain hybrid, why wouldn't we just go back to hybrid starting in the second semester and bring our K-12 students back and give everyone the greatest opportunity to have any type of FaceTime with their teachers? Because it is so extremely valuable for our students to have that FaceTime with their teachers off of a screen. So it'll be my recommendation, if that's the case and we have to stay hybrid and it's not going to a 5-day straight model with our elementary students, that we really consider bringing all of our K through 12 students back in a hybrid model. So if you want to take that any way you want. Like you, Bob, I end up talking more than I want to. So go ahead.
No, I think, Mr. Costello, well, first of all, I agree. The problem with, if you're going by the letter of the recommendation, which again, that recommendation was put out to 499 schools. I feel it was careless in the way that was put out, because there's a lot of confused parents, I agree 100%.
And administrators. 100% on your side on this. That's why I'm saying, if it simply said, and again, this is just a discussion topic, but if it simply said, you're going to bring your elementary students back 5 days a week, and we're going to figure out how to do that because that's how you have to do it, and don't worry about all the other pieces. Okay, that's a good debate. But they still kept all the pieces in play that don't allow us to do that. So why wouldn't we just bring all our K-12 students? We passed that. It's a continuation of a plan we already have. If we're going to come back to school, let's come back to school for everybody. And I agree, because I'm right on the same page with you. It wasn't worded correctly for us to have any benefit for, that really we need to benefit all of our kids, not just some.
Yes. And again, right. And thank you for that. But again, listening to that recommendation, okay, they specifically mentioned elementary, specific to elementary, which again would lead you to say then it's not secondary. If you're interpreting that message as directly to us, again, what struck me in that message was what is best for your district, what is best for your community. But that got lost in the translation to so many people, because so many of our people are waiting to come back. So many of our parents have been put out so greatly over this entire pandemic. And they watch their kids, some really struggling online, and they said you could go back. The governor said you can go back. And since we've been relying so heavily on what the governor says, and remember, the governor met with us specifically, not the governor, but Pennsylvania Department of Education, and strongly recommended us close on November 12th. Strongly recommended, almost to the point of, hey, you're doing something really, really dangerous to your community. Was that said verbatim? No. Did I interpret it that way? Absolutely. So with that, we're trying to sift through that and say, okay, but look at Luzerne County, look at Mountaintop specifically, look at the amount of cases that we continue to have that are active, look at the hospitals, look at Geisinger, how many available beds are there? And while that maybe doesn't mean much for kids, because our kids we know probably aren't going to need that bed. Thank goodness, thank God. But our parents do, and our grandparents do, and our community members do. So our role, my role as the superintendent, does go beyond our students. I've got to look at my staff and my entire faculty and my community and say, I have a responsibility to this community to make sure I am not doing anything more to help spread this. I was told in that press conference, there's data that suggests, and then literally 2 days later, I'm watching the news, the evening news, and they're saying completely different things, that we now find kids asymptomatic are spreading, have the ability to spread this. So there's just a lot of misinformation. What I do know is that the Crestwood School District has followed our plan to the T, have communicated with local medical specialists, and have tried to keep the communication doors open to our families. And I'm proud of those efforts, and we will continue to do that. And there is nothing more than our goal and our desire to get our students back in person. We want to do that safely, and we are working every day to make that happen. So I am not saying it's not going to happen February 1st, and I'm not yet ready to say it's going to happen February 1st. And we will. We know that there's time needed for our families and our local daycares who have taken up a tremendous amount of responsibilities during this time. And kudos to them, those great people. There's a lot, but we're not going to make rash decisions. I don't need to be the first district to say we're coming back. Doesn't get us anything. Let's do what we've done from the very beginning. Make great decisions based upon data, based upon everybody's input, and do what's best for our kids and our community. And that's what we're going to do.
I thank you, Bob, for that. And I apologize to the entire community. My kids bought me one of those lights that glow for when you're TV, and my bald head is glaring. And I looked up and I actually saw it, and I apologize to the whole team and everybody out there in cyber world that you have to see that. And Bob, I
look wonderful.
And I do wonderful. You know how hard I push you all the time, and we have great debate. All I'm going to say to finalize, and I trust your decision making, and I am proud to have you on board with all this, and very grateful. All I'm saying is, when that decision comes, and we have the opportunity to bring kids back, I'm just recommending that if we have to stay in a hybrid model, that we bring K through 12, not just K through 6 back. That's all I'm saying. I want every kid the opportunity.
Absolutely.
And if things change, I know the governor threw that out there about elementary, and it really drove, I got hammered with some calls about it. That's all I want to say. I totally have your faith in you and your administration's decision. It's just, I see it here on the item about elementary only. I really want to advocate for all K through 12 kids. And again, I'll wear a hat because this is bad, or turn off the light. I feel bad about everyone. So I'm going to be quiet so we can get through this.
Thank you. And thank the other members of this board who have
I thought that was your halo.
done so much.
I shut it off for you, Barry. I couldn't do it anymore. I had to turn the
Mr.
camera off.
Bibla, we do have a series of questions from the public. Are you okay if we could get to them? Are you all right with that?
I just want to say that I'm in favor of K through 12. I don't know if anybody else in the committee wants to have anything what they want to say. But then, yeah, you could go with your questions. Okay.
Wonderful. And of course, as we go on, any input, please, any dialogue is welcome. Mr. Belanger, could you please read the questions? Some of them I think are statements. I'm sorry, I'm just having a hard time viewing them. So if you can you please read them for me, sir?
Yes, Mr. Hollick. We have just a lot of statements, but I'll go through. I'm trying to just carve out the questions here.
I want to hear I do want to hear the statements though. If you can, please, sir.
I'm going to try to go back as far as I can because unfortunately, as the stream goes, I'm losing some of the
first one I believe is a Bonnie Jean Lazar.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read what I sent you, and then I'll roll backwards through some of the statements. So Bonnie Jean Cooney Lazar, is the inoculation mandatory for all staff members, or is it voluntary?
It is voluntary.
Okay, the next question was from Judy Orlowski Morales. If hybrid isn't coming soon, can we move the schedules for Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday to a full day schedule and use Wednesday as the office hours and catch up? The full day seems to be more normal of a schedule. Just a thought.
Judy, wonderful thought. We have members of our administration here, and please, team, look at Judy's recommendation. I've seen other districts using that. Judy, that will be a discussion item tomorrow.
Thank you. Jessica Danko asks, what about sending out another survey to poll the parents?
Yep, Jessica, I think a very good idea. I think, Jessica, what we could also do is maybe have each teacher speak to our kid, because I think that survey would be who's returning and who's not. That's really the important piece, Jessica, and I think that's what you were asking about the survey. We may even be able to do that, each teacher surveying their class. Now, obviously, K1, 2, 3, 4, we may have to say, can you get your parents or, someone, to help do this? But yes, that Jessica, is something we will do. Either we'll do it per teacher, per class, or we will do another survey per the district.
Thank you. Felicia Renee Mendez, why is it that they will stay online schooling for safety because the numbers are not going down? Why is it safe to have children playing sports?
Great question. I would direct that to the PIAA. I would direct those questions to PIAA.
Charlie Madrovsky. This is Amanda Madrovsky. CSD sports are not wearing masks during home games and not only at away games when the away school requires it. Teams practice with masks and players and coaches wear them on the sidelines. However, the boys basketball team played last Saturday at Dallas where masks were required for both teams. On Monday, parents were notified a Dallas player tested positive. I was grateful the teams were wearing masks during the game for that reason. Can you please reconsider requiring masks during the games? I've seen the pics of kids with the mask coming down during play, but at least there is an attempt to keep the masks. No masks is dangerous. I'm watching the CSD girls play right now with no masks at home against Hazleton.
Amanda, thank you. First of all, I hope you're doing well, Amanda. We had gone back and forth, Amanda, so many times with this. I can't even tell you from when we got word that sports were continuing. And again, we can go through, why are our kids playing? In my heart, this is really a tough decision. But these kids have had a lot taken away from them, and it goes way beyond sports. This is anything. Okay, tonight we have our FBLA final. We'll find out tonight who qualifies for the FBLA, Future Business Leaders of America. Anything we can give these kids safely, I have to support. In theory, I don't understand how sports are continuing, right? But I do know that we are doing questions with each one of our kids. each and every time before practice. We are taking their temperature. I understand it's a very, very small mitigating way of determining this, and it's not something that's foolproof, but it does give us something to say they're okay, that they're safe. Now, we can look, as Amanda pointed out, we played last Saturday, and as early as Sunday, one of the members of the team, and it wasn't our team, and it doesn't matter who it was, because again, it's not about failure, but somebody that quickly had become sick. And kudos to Dallas for taking the very, very quick actions of one, the parents and family members, making sure everybody was safe, notifying us. But to answer Amanda's question, we went, Amanda, back and forth over and over, masks, no masks. And yes, we can still consider it. You know, in that discussion, Amanda, is about wrestling. And because that's, you know, a winter sport, something that Crestwood, you know, has a lot of students doing. Again, it's something that I just hope each and every day I'm like that we don't have a situation with our wrestlers. But we know that it would be almost impossible to put that mask on while wrestling. And in some ways could become dangerous if it should get tied to the wrestler's ear. If a wrestler, because there is, you know, obviously different techniques that are already restricting your ability to have a really good, clean breath of air. And that's a good hold or a good move, Mr. Swank would tell me. But so we ruled out wearing masks in the sport of wrestling, the same as they did with those teams that have swimming. And I know that sounds obvious. You can't swim with a mask. But then we went to basketball. And I know there's much longer than Amanda wanted, but and in the end, we came to the decision that we would mask up at all times, except on the playing court, because we thought maybe the ability to a kid to become sick because they were in need of air would pose a greater threat. But I can tell you it's not off the table, and I will again meet with our team. And when I mean team, I mean the committee with that, Amanda. And again, I know you're very involved with your husband, and you understand the level that these kids are playing at. So I appreciate that, and we will look at that.
Thanks, Bob. I'm going to try to read as many comments as I can. The chat only goes back so far because there's a lot.
Sure.
So I'm going to go back as far as I can go. Sarah Elizabeth said Lake Lehman has been in person for months, and they figured out a way to social distance and has been able to isolate cases and still have children. Oh, I think I lost it there. Hold on. It cut off on me. And still have children get quality in-person teaching. Why can't Crestwood?
I can't comment on other districts. I won't comment on other districts. I'll comment on Crestwood, and we are doing the very best. We came back for 3 weeks, and we're told to close down by the Department of Education. 3 straight weeks in a row, we were told, recommended strongly to close down. Again, I don't compare us with any other school but us, what is best for this school. And together we're going to make that decision. So I don't know.
Okay, thanks, Bob. Let's see. I'm trying to go back here. Jamie Rosh Halpin says FaceTime is important, but on the hybrid, when they aren't in person, they are more on screen doing independent work that is not working. Let's see here. They don't want to do 4 hours at Momentum and see their class for 45 minutes. That's not education. Let's see here. Stephanie Weber says there's so much misinformation, so thank you for stating that. Christine Kavanaugh, full-time for elementary should be an option. The hybrid model is not working based on the time spent. My first grader is in class for about 90 minutes when she is home on the hybrid model. Stay virtual or go full-time. Recommendations to let them go back by Ella Revel. Karen, I'm sorry, I can't read this name. Caparuccio. Going hybrid would allow our district to bring back our furloughed staff. What a nice way for them to be able to start 2021. Ella Revel, best thing for our community is for students to go back. So then Ella makes a comment, stop with the hospitals. You're not the first district, good grief. I think she was responding to your comments before. There is room, so stop using that. Lindsay Wilson.
I'm going to respond to that because I speak with doctors. So maybe Ella knows something more than I know or that what I'm told to. But Ella, I speak specifically to hospitals and I get a daily update. Every single morning I get an update. So Ella, either the information coming to me is wrong, inaccurate, coming from the hospitals or, but it is a concern of mine and I need to. Crestwood School District is about the entire community. And that's something I have to consider in my responsibilities.
Thank you, Mr. Mahalik. Lindsay Wilson, daycares have gone above and beyond with much less than the school districts right now. They do a lot more with way less funds than the school district. They should be commended.
I agree, Lindsay. They're tremendous.
Sarah Elizabeth, Lake Lehman have been in person for months. Oh, wait, did we read this? No, and they figured out a way to social distance and has been isolated. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, that was a repeat. Barry JL, all that is being offered is excuses. Virtual education is not working, and it is time to stop patting yourself on the back. Both public and private schools within our community and our county have been open and successful. The school district continues to write elaborate sports plans, but ignores the fact that first and foremost, it is an educational institution. It is time for new leadership within the Crestwood School District.
If you have your superintendent degree, I would ask you to maybe seek out the position.
Let's see, Amanda Lukashevsky. Let's be honest, if you're not comfortable sending your kids, you're going to keep them home regardless if we are hybrid or full-time, but give the parents a choice here, stay virtual or go full-time. Michelle Griffith, thank you for keeping the kids safe.
Thank you, Michelle.
Jamie Rosh Halpin, but you are doing more because you are allowing sports, so just let kids go back full time. If parents don't want it, let them stick to cyber.
Thank you, Jamie. And again, the decision to have sports was not the decision of the Crestwood School District.
Sarah Elizabeth, I feel bad for the kids that are not understanding the classwork through virtual learning. I see personally every day how they are struggling and getting frustrated. I feel for them. But don't worry, the teachers who are there helping them each day with their classes are supporting those kids the best we can, and we will make sure they succeed no matter what.
Thank you.
Tania Marie, is it true the school nurse tells students that have direct contact to presume positive and not to even get tested to the quarantine for the time frame recommended? If so, then we are saying we have cases we truly may not have. Did you catch that?
So I'm not certain of that question. I could tell you this again. This comes from the people that have done this from the very, very beginning. If you have symptoms and you have direct exposure, then you're considered presumptive. We would never tell someone to not get tested. Not our nurses, not this district. That's a decision that only a family can make. I also wouldn't tell somebody to get tested. We're not in that role. But I can tell you this: if you have direct exposure and have symptoms, that's considered presumptive positive. So, and it's interpreted that way as you would need to quarantine. So, but that's not a rule or something that we came up with. That's the guidance from the Department of Health through the CDC.
Thank you, Mr. Mahalik. Kelsey Reinheimer, when is the time frame for high school students to return to hybrid model?
I mean, again, we are hoping soon. What we heard was that the focus should right now be on your students with special needs, as well as your elementary children.
Okay. Lori Deckman comments, no mask for sports. That is potentially dangerous too.
Thank you, Lori. Right.
Let's see. Bonnie Jean says, thank you. GD Orlowski, great. Thank you. I think, again, sorry, they're probably responding to a previous part. Ella Revel says, in reality, we are exposed to COVID the moment we walk out our doors. We just have to be mindful with masks and social distancing. Our kids need to go back.
Thank you, Ella.
Lori Deckman, the opportunity for modified sports has been a literal lifesaver for our kids. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Eileen Williams, why doesn't the district get medical advice from a local infectious disease specialist? The whole state is not in the same situation with COVID. Luzerne County numbers are high and continue to be. Don't compare one district to the next. Each one's safety protocols and physical plant setup is different.
Yeah, very good point. And we we work with a local epidemiologist who's just has tremendous amount of experience and knowledge and guidance, and answers our phone every single time we call. And we appreciate her and the entire pandemic team. They're all local specialists, and they all have family members that live in our district.
Jessica, my son's 6th grade teachers are doing a fantastic job virtually, but I feel in-school learning is still the best all around. Ella Revel says, so we are told the importance by the state of reopening. Why haven't we?
Number one, the message was, again, brought to every district in the Commonwealth, okay? And it was to open at the beginning of the next marking period. And it also was look at your local community and see if you can safely open your schools. And again, that is exactly what we are doing and have been doing since we closed.
Okay. Lindsay Wilson, why wouldn't you benchmark other districts to see how they are being successful? This isn't a comment on the other district, but how can you improve if you don't look to those that are doing well?
I mean, again, every situation is different. I look around, almost every school district is closed in our immediate area. Some have already made the determination, Valley View. Some have said, we're not coming back. The safety and well-being of our community is so much more important than anything we can do right now. So we have to focus on ourselves. Okay, I look at Benton, just down the road, their decision to remain. What we've got to look at is our data, our numbers. That's what's, and certainly I'm talking with our superintendents often. Our IU does a tremendous job giving us as much guidance as possible, but ultimately it's really our area. And the difference between ourselves and just somebody, 12, 14, 16 miles away, can be pretty great. But there is no question that our infection rate in the mountaintop area right now is very, very, very high. and it's as high as it's been. And I'm not saying we're not returning. I'm saying we look at that data.
Courtney Franks, during in-person school, when a kid needed extra instruction in an area, they got it. For virtual, they are, sorry, it's scrolling. I mean, they are falling further and further behind with no extra instruction offered or available. Let's see. Chelsea Myers, my son has a speech IEP and is falling behind in reading. These kids need to go back at this point. If a parent doesn't feel safe, they have the choice to stay virtual. Please do what is best for these kids at this point.
Thank you.
Eileen says, thanks for consulting epidemiologist. Chelsea Goss, I'm just worried about my daughter healthy and safety. I would love for school to be open. My daughter needs in person, but I am high risk along with other people. That's what the issue is. The people that may become deathly ill. Children are supposed to be low risk. The district had to act accordingly. I commend you for doing the right thing. Who knows how our kids will do if they get sick. Aaron Kane comments, I'm all about opening back up. I've been teaching in hybrid every day since the first day of school. My school has not closed one time. I will say that Crestwood's hybrid schedule needs to be reevaluated because it does not work. On the days my children are home, they barely have anything to do, and putting them in Mentum for longer periods of time is not the solution. Let's see. Tanya Marie, I think what I was trying to get to as a point is when you're just assuming positive, you may just be ill with a virus. There are other viruses that exist, not just COVID. So will he always assuming everything is COVID and everyone has COVID with a test knowing truly if you are positive or negative? I understand there are recommendations, but telling everyone to presume positive seems a little bit over the top.
Yeah, we will never tell everybody to presume positive. The only time we're going to presume positive is if they have COVID-like symptoms and had a direct exposure. So, and you're so very right. There are still going to be, illnesses. But if it's an illness that is COVID-like, and we all know what those symptoms are, and you've had a direct exposure, a brother, a sister, a mom, a dad, someone you live with, someone you've been in very close contact with, then it is very, very clear that that is a presumptive positive. But if somebody with just, sniffles or a sore throat or whatever, an upset stomach, if there's not a direct exposure, meaning there's no one that they can indicate or identify that has COVID positive, we would absolutely not consider them presumptive.
Thank you, Mr. Mahalik. That's all the comments.
Again, thank you to the community so very much. And I just want to point out, I will pat us on the back, but I will pat and high five and give the greatest kudos to our families. Okay, we need that. We need that now more than ever. We are hurting in this community. I am who I am, and I will pat us on the back. I also have discussions when things aren't going the way they need to go. You're not going to be obviously a part of that, but this community deserves everything that I say. You're an amazing community. I watch us come together in the face of tragedy. I see how we reach out to our families. I've been through so much in over a year here, and I gotta tell you, there is no place like the Crestwood School District. And I'm sure every superintendent and every proud educator feels that way. I've gone through some really, really difficult situations with you, and we have always stuck together. We've leaned on each other, and we're gonna need to do that, especially a day like we've had the last couple days, losing some really special people in this campus, in this community. So that's who I am. I am going to always make sure you know how I feel about you. And that's a pat on the back. That's a thank you. That's a you're awesome, buddy. That's me. And I can take the criticism. That's what I signed up for. But my responsibility goes beyond just our kids. Nobody is more important than our kids. I have to consider the entire community. So I thank you all so very much and appreciate everything that you do for this district.
Mr. Mahalik, I'd like to just comment. Eileen she called me out to say thank you for keeping our kids safe. I am blessed to be home with my granddaughter and to have a wonderful 5th grade teacher at Rice. They rock the virtue. And I'm now an expert of Google Slides. Our 5th grader has been introduced to PowerPoint via the art teacher. Social studies teacher is enhancing their reading skills. The work as a team, and my granddaughter is doing excellent.
No, thank you, Aline. We met with Aline early in the summer on her big, beautiful property she had. We were online and got to see all the things that you're doing, Aline, and I'm glad because we had a struggle in the beginning. We had a struggle even getting, us making sure we can get you connectivity. But you've done so much as all of our families have, and it's not perfect. There are kids struggling, and we're going to have a lot of work to do when we get back to normal. Normal is coming. Normal is coming. And we will not stop until every kid gets what they need. So, Mr. Blanchard, thank you so much for reading those comments and questions to us.
Mr. Mahal, if I may, it's Mr. Sayre. It's the comment regarding reading assistance. In the virtual distance model, we still offer our full contingent of remedial support. So if you believe that your child is a student who is in need of reading assistance, please contact your building administrator and or your classroom teacher, because our Title I services are flourishing, running well, and so are our other intervention services. So please, it's something that both Mrs. Gregory and I take very seriously, is assisting people with reading. So contact your building administrator for assistance.
Thank you, Mr. Sayre.
We have one more discussion for academic graduation. So first, I think we talked about we need a date. So maybe by the board meeting, we'll talk and have a date nailed down, hopefully. And then there's, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Anna. We definitely have a date. So we'll have a date for you.
Okay.
I think it's the location that we really want to discuss and might be the point of, great amount of discussion.
Right. So,
would you like me to share those date potentials?
Please do.
Okay. The first and most logical date seems to be Saturday, June 12th. The next date would be Sunday, June 13th, or the following Saturday, June 19th. Those are all 3 dates available at the arena.
Mm-hmm.
So regardless of whether we go to the arena or somewhere else, it seems as though Saturday, June 12th is a logical choice.
I have a question. Bob, indoor facility right now, are we still under 250? Are we still under the 250 rule, or how does that work?
Yeah, I think it's actually a percentage now.
Okay.
So percentage of the size of the venue.
Okay, because I'm just wondering if we should even be thinking the arena, if we're looking at numbers. Mrs. Foster, what's the graduation class number?
It's fluctuating lately. I would use 220 as a good measuring stick.
Okay.
So the conversation with the arena is that, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Peg. I'm sorry.
The arena has been paid a deposit for last year's graduation of $2,500 that has been allowed to be carried over to this year's event should we decide to go back there. If we decide not to go back there, I believe that we forfeit that deposit. So that's why we reached out to the arena to find dates, and those 3 dates are available currently. The Friday event is the Friday, June 11th date is not available at the arena. They already have an event scheduled. They have shared that their seating capacity would allow us to continue to meet the requirements that we've always met, that you can bring any family member you'd like. We just would need to encourage families to cluster together and maintain social distancing and 6 feet apart from other family groups. So that component we've already discussed with the arena, and they believe that our current numbers would be well within their capacity limits. The other component that is a plus at the arena versus our campus is that parking for that large number of parents is easily accomplished at the arena. It's quite the challenge on campus. So things to consider. The other piece that I didn't even think about, but my friends and colleagues did think about, was that when we bring things onto our field, like chairs and staging and tables and girls in heels, it damages the turf. And that wasn't even on my radar to consider, is that damage to our facility by having a special event like that on our turf could cost us things that I didn't even have on the thought process in my radar. So things for consideration that we really need to have long thoughts about, because
Mrs. Foster, this is
I have a senior class that really wants to know when their graduation date is.
Mrs. Foster, this is Mr. Costello. Can I just ask, what is the deposit amount that was put down? And do we have a contract, obviously, that if they have to pull the plug on us, that we would get that money back and not have to continually roll it over as they might get shut down? I mean, we just don't, the future's hard to plan for in these days.
Sure. The contract for last year, because this is last year's contract, Mr. Costello, was a $2,500 deposit, which was paid to the arena. There is a force majeure component of the contract that I think we should run past Mr. Dean, just to verify what the impact of that is moving forward.
Thank you.
Certainly, I will rely on our legal team, but I mean, last year, clearly, both of us had to cancel. So I would assume, again, if we were to decide to come back here, that they would. I know. I mean, the arena is a very, again, community, centered entity as well, and they could not have hosted us last year. So almost, again, legally, I would have to assume that contract was just null and void anyhow. So the terms of that shouldn't be. I guess here's, have we had any discussions with the students? I mean, I think, we're in a position here now where, boy, last year we thought that the class of 2020 took had a bad hand dealt to them, but now, when you look at this year, I mean, these kids have barely had an opportunity to be a senior. So, I mean, would this be something we might be, discuss with them, see what their decisions are to give them the very best senior send-off possible, and knowing that we may already be at a point where that's going to be difficult, but and then look at what they want and can we deliver that? And it may be, let's stay at the arena where I can bring as many people as possible. They don't have maybe the emotional attachment to the district, or maybe they say we've missed so much of that campus. We saw what it was last year, and I think everybody knows that it was far greater than we could have all anticipated last year. I'm not saying duplicate that, but maybe we talk to the senior class and get feedback from them, and then as a team, see what can we do, what can't we do. Mrs. Foster brings up some great points. We have turf and heels don't go so well together. Spikes are good. Most girls probably won't wear spikes. If they want to, we could give them spikes and they won't hurt the field, but yeah, cleats or whatever we call them. So there would be things, if we wanted to do it on campus, that we would have to consider, and there would have to be, certainly, arrangements and discussions and meetings to take place. But maybe we begin with that
Ironically, sir, we've already had our first senior class meeting on Monday and started those conversations about, where we headed with a prom, where we headed with graduation, what's our graduation date. We really need to lock down a graduation date so they can start ordering things like announcements. We've been working on the diplomas, and they're submitting their diploma names, specifically their full legal name, so that we get the diplomas printed and here on site in a promptly manner. But we really need that date so that we can put that date on diplomas. So that, I think, is our first and highest priority. And all those other pieces, yes, we can continue to work on and move forward. But without that date, the senior lock-in it remains in limbo about their contracts with entertainment. So I know they're raising funds right now for a senior lock-in, and they're planning on moving forward. So a date would really be helpful.
So, Mrs. Bibba, would you be okay with us committing to the date today? Not necessarily the location. I think that's still going to take, but committing to the date. So at least the students can go through with that. We can reach out to the, to the arena, hold that date, and continue to discuss as a, again, as a team, where we want to hold this event. But I think the date, yes.
They are willing to hold our 3 dates as long as we need be up until right before, just because of everything going on.
Okay.
So
That's great. Stephanie, thank you so much for that. And I thought that they would do that. But I think if we could just commit to the date, then as Mrs. Foster, they can start getting those announcements out. And some family members may have to take care of schedules and things like that. I'm pretty certain we won't have snow delays this year or snow cancellations. So I think if we give a date of 12th, we can probably say that that's not going to change. We're on line of, having all of our hours going to be in place. And again, Mrs. Foster and Mr. Gorham do a super job with that. So if it's okay to move forward with a date, commit to that, we'll make it and then all that other details, we could work together as a team. And I would really like members of this committee to be a part of that if your time allows.
So does everybody want the 12th then? Is that good? Committee?
That's fine with me. I just have one quick question. If we're not going to have snow days, is that the earliest that the kids can graduate? If we decide
Yes,
not to go to the arena, would that be the earliest date that the kids could graduate?
Yes, Mrs. McGovern, that would be our first. The last day is June 11th. So the first day that we could graduate, having our students fully commenced would be that date.
Okay.
Great question.
Anybody else? So June 12th is good then? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I think we can close academic.
And I would, this is a little bit off topic, but I think this is a good place to put it in. Just between yesterday and today, we received the Crestwood Education Foundation, which we started almost 2 years ago and took about a year to get the paperwork through. And we were ready to really start rolling last year about this time when the pandemic hit, and we sort of been on hold. But the Crestwood Education Foundation received a sizable donation from Fidelity Bank. Would like to thank Fidelity Bank for that. And the money is earmarked for our Lego robotics program. And the purpose of the Education Foundation is to enhance programs run by the Crestwood School District. So I would like to, again, thank Fidelity and let the public know that the Education Foundation is up and running, and we're ready to help programs within the district.
All right, that's great news. Okay. Can we adjourn academic?
Thank you. Mrs. Bibla. We will now open our technology committee agenda for this January 14th. Call to order our chairwoman, Mrs. McCurdy, our committee members, Mrs. Bibla and Mr. Costello. Mrs. McCurdy, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mahalik. A motion to approve the minutes of the Technology Committee meeting from November 12th, 2020.
Motion, Mr. Costello.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to move item 4 to the agenda for next week. This is to approve the contract with Marco for leasing the copiers used on the secondary campus copy room as per the agreement. Are there any questions from anyone on the committee about this item? Seeing none, are there questions from the board or administration or questions from the community? Okay, seeing none, I move to, I'd like to move this agenda item. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. I'd like to adjourn the Technology Committee meeting.
Thank you so much, Mrs. McCurdy. We will now open our Positive Behavior Intervention Committee agenda for this January 14th with our chairwoman, Mrs. Bibla. We have Mrs. McGovern and Mrs. Spath as our committee members. Mrs. Bibla.
Roll call, please. Mrs. McGovern.
Here.
Mrs. Spath.
Here.
Make a motion to approve the minutes of the Positive Behavior Committee on November 12th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Seeing none. We don't have anything for the agenda. And Bob, do you have anything for discussion for today?
So we will, for next month, Mrs. Owens Harris, I believe she is on with us. She has put together a special education manual. Her staff and team are still working through it, giving her feedback. It's guidance for our teachers to have and to follow. Some protocols in there, so we're as consistent as we can be. So I know that is something that will be coming our way. The other thing I know that Mrs. Harris has been working on, and she will be going to the policy committee. This is something that has come to us many, many months ago through one of our parents, a very, very special lady who several years ago lost a child. We are going to be adopting an untimely death policy for our district. This, again, is something that Mrs. Owens Harris has been working on for many months with a member of our community. And so we want to get that in place. So as a team, we can all work together if such tragedy should strike, that we all are assured that we're meeting the needs of our kids through some very, very good time. So she's working with that. I know she has reached out to Mr. Costello, and they will have that, I believe, for next month as well. So I do thank you, Ms. Bibla, for that discussion.
Along those lines, Mrs. Bilbo and Mr. Mahalik, IU will be bringing training to our staff on trauma-informed practices. It's Trauma 101 this month, and then in the following month, it will be Trauma 102 to help our teachers understand the baggage that kids draw and bring with them to school, as well as how to help support kids with traumatic experiences like COVID, like death in the family, like alcoholism, divorce, those things that happen in family lives and how they impact themselves in school. So those teacher trainings are scheduled for our Act 80 days coming up in both February and March.
Hey,
Thank you.
Anything else from the committee members or the board? Seeing none, can adjourn positive behavior.
Thank you. And I just want to apologize. I'm lagging. I'm not exactly sure why. My office is usually pretty stable. So I apologize to everyone. I am getting some messages that I'm lagging a little bit. So I apologize. But we will close out positive behavior and move to our physical plant and grounds committee agenda. We have our chairwoman, Mrs. Haddix. We have our chair committee, Mr. Costello and Mr. Brogna. Mrs. Haddix.
She's not on, Bob.
Do we still see Ms.?
No, she's not on. She must have gotten dropped off. I don't know what happened.
Okay, maybe we could give that to Mr. Brogna. Are you with us?
He's there.
Yes, I'm here. In Stacy's absence, I'll be, I see Mr. Costello is present. I'll be seeking approval of the minutes of the Physical Plant and Grounds Committee meeting from November 12th.
Second?
And of course, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We will move on to the agenda item, which is number 4, and it's for the baseball and softball field work.
I'm back.
Oh, Stacy, good. Pick it up.
Can you hear me?
Yes. We approved the minutes and we're on to the agenda item for baseball and softball field work.
Thank you so much. That's what you get when you're driving. Item on the agenda that looks like it should be moved to next week's agenda, but it actually is more of a discussion item because the work for the baseball and softball field that is on tonight's agenda is already budgeted and planned for. So it is for the diamond plate. I think there may be, Pete, you might be able to elaborate a little bit more on this, but I know
Sure.
It is budgeted and more of a discussion item rather than anything that needs to be voted on.
Right. So where we are with the baseball and softball complex work is that the Diamond-Tex dirt that we're using on the field is going to be taken out of Scott's Brummage in the maintenance budget because we have the money in there for general repair of the complex, or of what I call the complex, which is the physical plants of the school district, of the school's buildings, of the Rice, Fairview, or secondary campus buildings. So we could take the money out of there for that, which is roughly about $5,000 for the Diamond-Tex dirt. The rest of the project that will be undertaken will be to put up a fence around the softball fields and the softball field, and then the scoreboard as well, that we received a donation for the scoreboard. But those projects, I'm not sure where they stand, but when they stand and they're ready to go, we will take the money from the Johnny Montgomery capital project account, and that will need a board vote, but we're not prepared to move on that at this point. So right now there is nothing to be voted on. We could probably vote on that in February to move that money over because the project has not had been done yet. The scoreboard funds, there was a donation to be made, and we hope to keep the projects for the scoreboards for both fields within that donation. And if not, they're going to have to fundraise for the rest of that donation because quite simply, we're not going to have the funds available to do that. But they've been made aware of that as well, Mr. Ambosi, as well as the athletic committee members. So that's where we stand with that project, and that's where the baseball field, softball field work stands. We are on track to have them ready for the spring baseball season. So I'm proud to report that. And the sod work was completed and the sod took. And so everything is good in that respect as well. So we're on track to have the fields ready to go for the spring.
I have a question. Do we need to have a vote to ratify the acceptance of the estimate so that the work can be done? We received the bid. That was never voted on. I don't know if it's because we just got the bid on January 8th. To have the installation of the Diamondtex in both the baseball and softball fields.
No, because it was under $10,000, and it was a budgeted item. So no.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Does anyone on the committee? Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to go on to number 5 with the rezoning property because I just got an update on that. But I was skipping right over the question part of it, so I apologize, Mrs. Haddix.
Nope, no problem, Pete. Thank you. Does anyone on the committee or the board have any questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, we'll go to the next item, which is the discussion item. So, Mr. Bard, if you could just continue with your thought on that.
Yes, the housing update we just got an update a couple days ago. We have to pay Wright Township for the hearing, which is approximately $400 for the hearing, and then $500 to go into a escrow account for the hearing. And then we'll have the hearing, and then we'll get it rezoned into a public entity. And we have to do that as quickly as possible because we are getting tax bills, both from ourselves. So basically, Crestwood sent the tax bill to Crestwood, which is interesting. But we have to pay that. We have to get that zoned so we don't get any more tax bills from the county or the municipal agencies, and so that everything is clear on that property. But we are moving forward with that. I mean, I hope to have it done by the end of March. So that's where we are on that. But it is moving forward. It's just it's a painstakingly slow process. But we are moving forward on it. That's all I have.
Is there any questions? Thank you. Is there any questions from the committee or board?
Stacy, this is Scott speaking. We're just waiting on the okay from the committee or the board to go ahead and pay that $900 with the application for the special exception to get us that zoning, which means we'll have to go to a board hearing at Wright Township. So as long as we have the okay, we can go ahead and file that.
So if there's any, I guess we don't really need a formal vote. If there's any objections from the board or the committee, correct, paying that $900, that we could just go ahead and get it done. So that's kind of what we're looking for. If there's any objections.
Okay, is there any objections from the committee or board? Okay, hearing none, we'll say there are no objections.
We'll get it taken care of then.
Mr. Mahalik, is there any other comments?
Mrs. Haddix, at this time, there are no comments from our community as it relates to our buildings and grounds.
Thank you. Then I would move to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Adjourned.
This time we will open up our co-curricular agenda. We have Mr. Swank, our chairperson. We have Mrs. McGovern and Mrs. Haddix. Mr. Swank, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mahalik. The first item, I'd like to approve the minutes of the co-curricular committee meeting of November 12th, 2020. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, seeing none, we'll approve those minutes. Item number 4, we're looking to move 2 items to the agenda for next week's voting session. Items number 1 and 2, as stated on the co-curricular agenda. And at this time, I'd like to see if there are any questions from the other committee members on those 2 items. None? Okay. Mr. Mahalik, or any questions on those items from any other board members or the public?
This time, there are no questions from the public, Mr. Swank.
Thank you. So what we'll do is let's take a vote to move those items forward to next week. All those in favor? Aye.
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 And seeing none opposed, we'll move those forward to next week. It looks like also no discussion items for this week for committee meetings. And therefore, I'll ask for an adjournment.
Just like to throw in, even though it's that in about approximately 1 hour, those of you that subscribe to the NFHS here at Crestwood, our girls basketball team will be on live against Hazelton tonight with our district solicitor and a member of the boys basketball team doing the color commentating. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we log on, 2 things. One, Mr. Boone will also be joining our broadcasting staff for our girls game. So please tune in to hear some great insight from a 25-year veteran of girls basketball at Crestwood School District. And second, 2E, I was reminded by my my faithful counselor, Camden Boris. What junior high volunteer in, is that wrestling, Mr. Swank?
Boys basketball, I think.
Yeah, I didn't notice that, Bob. Thank you. Yeah.
I believe it's boys basketball. Yeah,
Let's correct that, Steph, for next week when we meet.
I definitely will. Yep.
Super. Okay, so we'll adjourn co-curricular at this time. Thank you, Mr. Mahalik.
Thank you, Mr. Swank. And at this time, we will now call to order our Transportation Committee agenda with Mrs. Spath as our chairwoman, Mr. Costello and Mrs. Bibla making up our committee. Welcome.
Thanks, Bob. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the Transportation Committee from November 12th, 2020.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So this month, we don't have any agenda items or discussion items. So if there's any questions or comments from the board or the public, we can take those now.
At this time, Mrs. Spath, there are no questions from the public.
Okay. So seeing none, I'll move to adjourn. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Spath. And at this time now, we will open our Financial Planning Committee the agenda. We have Mr. Brogna as our chairman. We have Mr. Swank and Mrs. Haddix as our committee team. Mr. Brogna, where is yours?
Thank you, Mr. Mahalik. I see that both Mr. Swank and Mrs. Haddix are present, and I'll be seeking approval of the minutes from the previous Finance Committee meeting agenda from November 12th, 2020.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we will review the agenda items. Item 4.1 will be requesting to move these two agenda items to the board vote next Thursday. Recommend the board approve an Act 1 resolution stating that Crestwood School District will not raise taxes above the Act 1 index of 3.7% for the 2021-2022 fiscal year. This would be instead of in lieu of doing a preliminary budget, applying for a referendum exceptions, which would go above the index. And we really needed to spell that out. I know Mr. Bard will have more information on that in his remarks. And then second, we will be accepting the 2019-2020 audit report from Baker Tilly. Do I have any questions from the committee?
Mr. Brogna, there's a third item too on the screen. I had to add it at the last. I had to add it after the agenda. Number 3 is recommend consideration for the board to approve Equitable as a 403B provider for the Crestwood School District. It is so that was something that I had to add. It's a new 403B provider for our employees to take advantage of.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I apologize for that to be added at the last minute.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Bard. And any questions from our committee? Any questions from the rest of the board on items 1, 2, or 3 on the agenda?
This is Mrs. McCurry. I'm just wondering, is the audit available on our website currently, or will it be available soon?
Yes, it's going to be available after the board approves the publication, which will be after the 21st. I'll publish it. And I'd like to also touch on agenda item 1 and what the results were of the Baker Tilly audit at this time as well. The audit showed that the district finished the fiscal year ahead of and has a fund balance now of $1.3 million. That is a drastic, a very clear turnaround in a short period of time that I've been the business manager and Bob has been the superintendent. I've budgeted a fund balance in the current fiscal year of approximately $162,000. So it's an addition of $500,000 in the fund balance that we didn't expect to occur. However, that being said, that does not mean that we are out of the financial danger anytime soon. As a matter of fact, it just shows that I've been doing exactly what we've promised, Bob and I have promised that we were doing, that we would clamp down on spending and restrict what we're spending money on. However, the reason that I've asked for the Act 1 resolution instead of doing a preliminary budget like that normally we've done and then applying for the referendum exceptions to go above the Act 1 index is primarily because the preliminary budget would open up those doors to potentially apply for to go above Act 1 index, which maybe would take tax increases above 3.7 to maybe 4% or 5%, because for number one, we're in the middle of a pandemic, and to increase the taxes higher than 3.7% would not be, it's something that's really extraordinary. It's something that should not be really considered unless we're in extraordinary financial distress. And I think, and based on the current situation, I believe 3.7% would be able to close the gap the way that we're doing it right now. We are trending in a very positive direction currently right now. I look at budget to actuals, and with the $2.4 million budget, or the $2.4 million debt service payment that we're coming up upon in 21-22, which is a $2 million increase over what we're currently paying right now. I believe with the tax increase of 3.7% coming up, I think that we'll be able to close the gap and have and be able to do it with cost reductions as well across the board. But make no mistake about it, we're in a very, very, very challenging position, even with the situation that we're in. But we have to consider that the Act 1 resolution is just saying that we're not going to raise taxes above 3.7%. But when we start the budget meetings, ladies and gentlemen, there's going to be one option from the administration, from Bob and myself, and it's going to be to raise taxes to 3.7%. And that's going to be the only option. I want to share some, when we get through this agenda items number 4, there's some issues to talk about number 5. And I will talk about number 1, which we'll discuss a little bit as to why agenda item number 1 is made possible as well. But let's get through these first 3, and then I'll discuss a little bit more about agenda item number 1 and some possibilities moving forward. But Mr. Chairman and Mr. Board President, I would that concludes my discussion on the agenda items, and then we will go. And then in the discussion items, I'll elaborate a little bit more on what I expect for the budget and moving forward with the CARES money and going forward a little bit.
Thank you. So if we have no additional questions on items 1, 2, or 3 from the agenda from the committee, do we have any additional questions from the board?
Yeah, Mr. Brona, thank you. We do. And by next week, for the agenda, we will correct number 3. There should be a name of a company there. Now, I cannot make out what that is, but there is a name of a company.
Equitable is the name of the company.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it should be capitalized.
It's just not capitalized because we added it last minute.
Okay.
Equitable is the name of the company. Yeah, it should be a capital E. That's the only issue.
I think it's Equitable Education Options or something like that. So let's do the full formal name if we can with that company. So the motion reads exactly how it is. Okay? Thank you.
Mr. Mahalik, do we have any other questions from the board or the public?
Yes. Peter, the $1.3 million fund balance, is that projected at the end of this fiscal year, or was that as of June 30th, 2020?
That was as of June 30th, 2020.
Thank you.
That is going into this fiscal year, what we had going into June 30th, 2020.
Thank you.
Any questions from the board? Hearing none, any additional questions from the public about items 1, 2, or 3?
At this time, Mr. Brona, there are no.
Okay, I'll be seeking a motion from the committee and approval to move those agenda items to vote next week. All in favor?
Aye.
Is Mr. Swank still with us?
I'm here. Aye.
Opposed? I say aye. All hearing no objections, we'll move those items to a board vote next week. And then we'll move on to point 5, the discussion items. And I'll turn this over to Mr. Bard, and I wanted to share my thoughts because we've talked in great detail about this. You're going to hear something about CARES Act stimulus money. We will hear about the significance of the financial audit and the clean review. We're going to hear about some possible revenue items, as well as a discussion of what the Act 1 resolution means. I want to commend Mr. Bard and the finance team for their efforts. None of these grants flow in without someone doing due diligence. You don't get a clean audit. For those of us who have been audited many times in the private or public sector, unless you're doing the right work. And so I want to commend, before we go into those discussion items, and hear Mr. Bard's remarks as it relates to those items and also our future budget.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On number 1, the CARES stimulus money, there's going to be an article in the newspaper, and there was one article posted already, but we haven't gotten the formal number in yet from the Department of Education as to what we'll be receiving, but it'll be somewhere between $910,000 and $1.3 million, which is will be one of the lowest numbers in Luzerne County. But we're just going to go with the $910,000 number for right now. But the CARES money that was just passed by the Congress and signed by the President, where everybody got the $600 stimulus check, that will provide us with a $910,000 money. Now that money, the difference between this CARES money and the other CARES money is this money can be used for actual balancing of our budget. It could actually be used for salaries. It could be used for a wide range of things. It's not restricted to buying PPE or Chromebooks or anything of that nature. It also has it doesn't have to be used within 6 months or a year. It could actually be used until 2023. So it does give us a wider range of uses. So with the $910,000 that we'll be receiving, in addition to where the fund balance is situated at, that does give us just enough breathing room to get over the limit that we need to get over the $2.4 million thing, over the $2.4 million threshold to pay our debt, because we need to maintain a fund balance. Or, you know, how the Crestwood School District is always in the top of the top, you know, when they issue the grading report, the Citizens Voice and the Times Leader and all those newspapers always issue the top, you know, school districts, and Crestwood's always getting always the highest marks. Well, one of those marks is the financial report. And if we don't have a fund balance, then Crestwood won't be in that discussion anymore, because the fund balance is part of it. So we have to maintain a positive fund balance. And if we don't raise the taxes to that 3.7%, we are in danger of losing the fund balance, even with the CARES money. So we have to maintain that. I think with based on the projections that I've worked out in a very rough draft, we should be able to get there and maintain a fund balance with the tax increases and with cutting some expenses in some different areas that we're looking at. Bob and I have looked at. But I also want to commend not just Bob and myself, because it's not just him and I. It's also the principals of their buildings. It's also Scott. It's also Dean. It's also Damien. It's a team effort. It's not just him and I. I have to commend all of them, from Bonnie, Kevin, John, Peg. They all have done such a tremendous job at watching their pennies and their dollars, and they're just phenomenal. I've never worked with a better group of people at watching their expenses, and I just hope that continues over there. I mean, we're gonna have to continue over the next couple of years until we get out of this period. And I've also spoken to our financial advisors, and they have unequivocally have said that if we go back for a scoop and dump one more time, which they said was a possibility, but if we go back for a scoop and dump one more time, there's no doubt that our credit rating will be degraded one more time, and that will make any future borrowing nearly impossible. So that will close the door on any other future projects, or make future projects very, very difficult to do. Whether it be you guys want to do any type of building project or any type of building improvement project down the road, it will make the cost of borrowing much more expensive for us, and it will be a real black eye on the district. And for such a proud district, I would not want to see that happen. So I'm really leaving that as a non-option right now. So that is why the CARES money was a very big bonus for us right now, and that really is why it solidified my idea to put the Act 1 resolution into place. So the CARES money is where we're going to be able to use it. Now, I also want to give a couple caveats about this. The caveat is that if the state government decides they want to cut our basic ed subsidy, our special ed subsidy, or the transportation subsidy, then we're going to need that money and every dollar we possibly can to balance the loss of revenue from that. So we're still at the mercy of whatever the state budget is going to be, and we won't know that for another month yet. So we do need to maintain that vigilance on that. So that's why maintaining our costs, our what we spend and what we don't spend, is very, very, very important. And I know that you guys, all 9 of you, have been very vigilant on that. I know our administration team is very, very, very vigilant on that, and so on and so forth. And so the final piece I want to talk about is we just finished our collections for taxes in the 2020 school year. In 2019, we collected 95.5 or 95.1% of the face value of all of our taxes, which means all the taxes, only 5% of the taxes were delinquent that were issued. This year, as you know, the taxes were raised 2.5%, which was actually very, very much needed, because the face value the face value of the taxes, the collection rate fell to about 93.5% based on my initial estimation of what fell, because the tax collectors were just turning in their final reports. And it appears that we'll be turning over about $350,000 more in land returns to the Tax Claim Bureau for collections, which means that that means the collection rate fell by about 2%, which means less money coming into the district immediately and more going over for delinquent taxes. So the tax collection, the 2.5 tax percentage increase rate means that we got more money up front, even though some money did fall behind. Some more tax payers did fall a little bit more behind, and that could be for any number of reasons. Now, that 93% is still much higher than some other districts, actually a lot of other districts that my fellow business managers were lamenting in some throughout the state. So we are still in a much better position than other school districts, thank God, and thankfully for our people. But it's not as good as it could have been, and it will fall a little bit short of our projection in our budget, because I did budget a 94.4% tax collection rate. So it will fall a little bit short. Now, where we will do better is in our real estate transfer tax, because people still want to move here. And I've been told by several realtors they want to move here, and their number one reason why they want to move here, out of all the reasons that could possibly be listed, the number one reason here is because of the public school system here. So I want to also note that Crestwood School District is the second lowest millage rate in the county. So you're getting the biggest bang for your buck with the best school district and the second lowest tax millage rate in the county. So you're getting the biggest bang for your buck here for the school district. So that's number one, Mr. Chairman. And number two, the financial audit came back clean, no findings of any issues. And that was a big deal. I know it was a little bit longer than necessary, but there was no findings. We did have an issue that we were going to fix in the food service department with the financial loss in the food service department that we will be correcting, basically due to participation falling off slightly, but we're going to fix that we've talked about. But the turning around of the fund balance is a big deal. A chunk of that was the refinancing of the debt, but it also was the fact that we stopped spending money when Bob took over, and then when I took over, further that. And I think that was a tremendous help to the district's financial position, and it is turning around. And we have really stemmed the tide, because when the budget book will be posted, you'll see where the projected fund balance was supposed to go, from 922,000 to 86,000, but it went to 1.3 million instead.
Pete.
And that is just a true statement to where our planning is going. Yes, sir.
You got some heavy background noise behind your mic.
Hang on a second. How about now?
Much better.
All right. Sorry about that. So I don't know if anybody can hear me, but the financial turnaround of the district was, I think, a pretty dramatic one. And that's kind of what I think the auditors were looking at to ensure that all the numbers were correct, that there was no, missing anything or anything like that. So there was a big turnaround on that. And that's why the financial, the $1.3 million came into play. There's no hidden debt or anything that has to be written off. Everything's been taken care of with this audit. And so there's no hidden scale. There's no hidden, there's no anything hidden or anything like that in this audit. Everything's taken care of. And I think that the public will be, with all the data that we're sharing with the public, there is no hidden costs or anything hidden in the background here with this. And I think we're moving forward in a very positive direction. It's just that we're in a very tough situation with the debt service payment. But once we get through this year, we'll have a little more breathing room in the following year. It's just that we have to rebuild the fund balance so that we don't have any more financial stresses in the future, and we can continue to move on beyond that. So in the number three, I've been reached out. Mr. Brogan and I had some discussions about the placement of advertising on the digital sign outside of our secondary campus. There are a lot of business owners that live in the mountaintop area and on the mountain, and they have had to target some of our students here that live on the or that will frequent our secondary campus, and they want to advertise some job opportunities and some other things that they want to, maybe a 5 or 10 second sign spottage on our sign that would cycle through. And so I reached out to some of my colleagues to see if they had any experience with this, and a couple of them have. And so what I found out is the primary issue would be reaching out to our local zoning officer to find out if there's any prohibition against, because we're a public entity, if there's any prohibition in the zoning code about any advertising because it's a public zoning thing. So I've placed a call with the zoning officer. I have to call again to make sure. I have to call again because I wasn't able to connect with them. So I'll call him again to make sure that there is nothing prohibiting us from doing that. And then once we got clearance from him, then we're good to go. We have to set a policy and formulate a policy that we to set how we want to use the money and what the the revenue source and how you guys want to use the money. If you want to use the money to support the general fund, you can do that, or you can use the money for a number of things, including setting up a scholarship fund for students, or how you guys want to use the money. That'll be up to the board decision. And then we could set up an account and use that as fodder for that. And exactly how you want to use, what the restrictions are for the advertising cost and advertising space will be. If you want it to be a 5-second spot, a 10-second spot, and how many cycles you want to use it for. Usually it'll be a 30-day spot, primarily maybe a 5-second cycle through. We could work that out with Damien as how he programs the sign. But there is certainly a possibility how much you want to cycle, how much the sign value is worth. Because it's a very well-traveled road on 309, I would imagine it's a very valuable piece. And I think that would be a very valuable tool that we can use to help our district out with that. Of course, we don't want to take away from our students and what the sign was there for. So probably just 1 or 2 spots on the sign, a cycle or a month would probably be the limit. But we could talk about that as we move forward. So probably for next month, you want to figure out what the policy would want to read and how much it would be, so we can move forward with that. If Mr. Chairman, you would agree with that. But we could have some discussion on that. If you guys would think, I don't know what the committee thinks or the board thinks about that, or what their thoughts are on that.
Let me just chime in here very quickly. The request was brought up by a few local businesses that had, instead of an interest in creating their own signs and dropping them on, it was primarily restricted by this request, and we could consider what the policy would be, is in recruitment to quality local employers. They're spending money on signage in the community. They'd rather give the money to Crestwood, and we have a really high visibility available sign. I appreciate Pete's diligence in researching this. I think we just began to scratch the surface to make sure there's no zoning issues. I don't see this as being a complete dominance of the sign, but an appropriate utilization and money coming back to either the school or whatever we decide in terms of scholarship or just general fund use. But I think most important is that businesses in the community covet our students and care about the district and would rather give the money to the school than rather than just create their own signs. And that was the impetus behind this idea. And hopefully we'll have more information in the coming weeks.
Mr. Brogna, real quick, in regards to that too, from a technical standpoint, we do have the ability to, if that comes to fruition, to even add something to an actual image of our students. So if we did, like we posted now, they placed in how they did in districts, putting a logo or some comment onto something like that so it didn't take up an actual slide of the whole sign. So that's an option too, just to, leave out there.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I could formulate a draft policy or draft pricing or something like that and circulate it among the committee members and board members closer to the February meeting so that we can have something more formalized by that time, and we can go forward with that at that meeting. So
yeah,
we'll work on that and have that ready for February.
Great. Number 4 is important. Explain to the 2021-2022 budget and what the Act 1 resolution means in succinct terms, because obviously I would share with the board and with the public, we are going to have public meetings about the budget as we did last year and discussion about what is. I want to be very careful because we talk about the success of CARES Act stimulus money and those that have been in education for years now. Sometimes government bestows funds at the top level from the federal government, and then maybe the state government, as Peter alluded to, might reduce the percentage of distribution. We have no idea what these variables will be, and we need to be aware and vigilant and knowledgeable how this would impact our budget over the next couple of weeks and months. And so with all that being said, Pete, if you want to add your discussion comments to number 4.
Sure. So the budget, the 2021-2022 budget, like I told you, I mentioned in the beginning, there's like last year there was a couple of budget options. This year there's only going to be one option. It's going to be from the administration point of view, and that's going to be a tax increase of 3.7%. And then we'll start whittling down the budget from the start. We'll start with like the wish list items and then start cutting it down budget department by department. The Act 1 resolution is just so that we, as to let the taxpayers know that, hey, the taxes aren't going to go up no more than 3.7%. So instead of having that uncertainty in the community where, oh, the taxes are going to go up, 5% or 6%. No, it's only going to go up 3.7%, no more than that. Obviously, we always hope for the best, but plan for the worst. So, but in this case, it's, that is what it is, and that's what the Act 1 resolution is. In terms of the CARES Act, that is exactly right. Mr. Brogan said the state could change our distribution. We've gotten a range from, like I said, 910 to 1.3 million, where I want to stick with the 910 right now. And it's basically driven by our Title I students, and also and that's driven by our direct cert free and reduced lunch. And that's one of the lowest in the county, simply because of our poverty rates, one of the lowest in the county. And that's not to say, and that's to say that, not to say we're being punished necessarily, but in terms of what our school district is funded 68% by the local taxpayer. So whether or not, so every dollar that comes into this district, 68% of it, 68 cents on every dollar is funded by the local taxpayer. 31 cents on every dollar comes from the state, and only 1 cent from every dollar comes from the federal government. So you have to remember that every dollar, so the local people are truly funding the school district, and whether or not that's fair or not compared to other districts where to a district to our south is making, where the state and the federal government pick up a lot of the tab in the local effort, it might not be, you might not consider it as fair, but it is what it is here in this district. And so we have to be extra vigilant on where we are doing with the money, and be careful, because we can only go to the we have to be careful what we levy on the taxpayer, because we understand that there are people that are in the district and portions of our school district that are in that poverty level, and we don't want to overtax them. We are senior citizens in the district that cannot afford a 3.7% tax increase, so we have to be very vigilant and very careful of what we do. And so that is why. Yes,
yeah,
sir.
If I can interrupt for a second, I just wanted to ask two quick questions. I know
Yes, sir.
hopefully they're easy answers. Number one, you talked about a 2% reduction in our tax collection rate. None of that could have been predicted as we ended last fiscal year, and certainly with the pandemic. What does that dollar amount relate to, 2% reduction? And what would that implication have been if we didn't raise the taxes? And then I guess my final thought or feedback from you, as it relates to, we also offered the multiple payment model that also allowed others to pay their taxes, not instead of one lump sum, but over multiple payments. And I think you have a number to share with that as well.
Right. So the dollar number that the collection rate fell was approximately $270,000 short of the collection. That's what. That's an approximation number. It's not an exact number, but that's the number that we came up short. Now, if we didn't raise the taxes, the 2.5%, that number would, I don't know exactly what that number would have been exactly, because it's too many variables to really give an exact number. And the number of people that took advantage of the installment plan, there was 47 property owners that took advantage of the installment plan. So another option, another thing I'm going to recommend that the board does, I believe, my plan is I'm going to recommend that the board does not put any penalties on the taxpayers again for this coming fiscal year, so that the board just has a 2% discount period. And then after the discount period ends, after the 60 days after the tax bills are issued, then for the rest of the period, just have a face period until December 31st. And not have any penalty period similar to this year. And that way, because of the pandemic, and even though the light's at the end of the tunnel of the pandemic, I believe that is the fiscally responsible thing for this. That'd be my recommendation. Anyways, the board can do what they want, but I think that would be a way so that if people are struggling and they're just getting back on their feet from the pandemic and everybody's vaccinated, we're back to normal by September, and everybody's back to the 5-day-a-week in school instruction. I think that will still allow the taxpayer not to face a penalty if they pay it late. Right. I think that's the fair thing, I think, to do in that respect. And we'll still offer the 3 installment, obviously, and that could be perpetual, that could be forever. But I think the penalty thing, one more year of that, I think would be fair. To to do. But because the board can set that whatever they want, but under tax code. But I think that is, and then the penalty, not bringing in penalty money, that only cuts out maybe 10% or $10,000 or something like that in collections. But I don't think that's a real big, loss there. And I think it helps the taxpayers out. But instance, I think we're doing a fantastic job. I think with collections, our earned income tax is on par to recover from where it started, a little bit lower when we started the calendar year. That's a calendar year collection, and we're recovering. We're recovering to the point where we should hit the budget number. So that means that our unemployment level has recovered here in the area. So that's a positive thing. But it's just that, like I said, our collection rate just fell a little bit short. And that could be any number of things. So, it could be any number of reasons as to why, but
great.
That's where I think we're at right now.
Thank you, Peter. Mr. Bard, appreciate all the detail there. We went through several important discussion items. Do we have any questions, either Damien or Mr. Mahalik first of all, do we have any additional questions from the committee? And any questions from the full board on these important items? Obviously, we're going to have much greater detail and review in the coming weeks about the budget.
One more thing, Mr. Chairman, and for Mr. Board President, and for the entire board, please, we have to, and Mr. Board President and Mr. Chairman, could you guys please get together and figure out when you guys want to set budget meetings? I know last year they were the last Wednesday of the month, but if you guys want to talk about them amongst yourselves and when you guys want to do the budget meetings and set up a schedule so we can start doing them either at the end of February or in March or whatever. And we can start talking about that and getting them together.
Yeah, we'd like to do that in February. We'll set a date. I'll talk with our board president and make sure that this is appropriate. Do we have any additional questions from the public, Mr. Mahalik?
Yes, we do. Mr. Blanchard, would you like to read those questions, please, sir?
Yeah, there was just a couple comments. Tommy Benz, in regards to Baker Tilly audit, great job. Getting actuals that close to budget for is a remarkable job by the district. He also mentioned that the Baker Tilly audit is already available on the sites of various brokerage houses that trade the district's bonds. And that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Any additional questions from the board or the public? Hearing none, obviously we'll be reviewing bills before the next board meeting. We'll adjourn the Financial Planning Committee meeting. Thank you, Mr. Bard. Thank you, Mr. Mahalik.
Thank you, Mr. Brogna and our committee. I think at this time, Mr. Boone, I'll turn it back over to you and any closing thoughts here.
No, thanks to everyone who participated and to all who watched this. And I wish you a good night. If there's nothing else, move for adjournment. Hearing no opposition, meeting adjourned. See you next week. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.